Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Catholic Citizen, where I cover this week's news from a Catholic perspective. It's a biased perspective, but again, this week we're going to be covering more on this year's presidential election. All right, well, welcome back for Catholic Citizen episode number 2. It's great to have you with us. But folks, this show isn't for free, so we need your help to help support us here at Awaken Catholic through, first and foremost, the Catholic app that we have through Awaken Catholic. If you go to the awakenapp.io, you can download this app on your phone. You can stream all the shows wherever you may be. A lot of people like to listen to the podcast, including this show, just in their car, and they do that through the Awaken app. So please, again, go to theawakenapp.io. Also, if you just want to support this program in particular, I invite you to go to awakencatholic.org/donate. We tremendously appreciate it, even if it's just $5 a month. That helps us tremendously here at Awaken Catholic continue to produce this content for you, drawing you closer to the heart of Jesus Christ. All right, friends, this week, just more of my biased opinion for you when it comes to some things from the election. There's always so much that I want to talk about each week, but I'm limiting myself to make sure that we don't spend hours in this program. I want to keep this as close to 10 minutes as I can. Last week, I got to about 20, so I'll continue to try to work to bring it down for you and keep it focused. Now, 3 points this week. First is just very simply, elections have consequences. And, when we vote for an individual, we're not just voting for that one person. We're voting for all the individuals that president or senator is going to bring with them into their particular position, particularly in the context of the president. And with Vice President-elect Joe Biden, presumably looking like he's going to ascend now to the White House, depending upon if there's anything major that happens before the electors come together and vote in December, he's begun to put together some of his cabinet. And so I want to look at some of those individuals that he's putting together in his cabinet. In particular, one individual, Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel. You may have not heard of Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel before, but he's just been appointed to Vice President Biden's or President-elect Biden's the COVID-19 task force. I always struggle with that word. Anyway. Interesting that he's on the task force for COVID-19, however, because he actually wrote an article a couple years ago that said, after you turn 75, life really isn't worth living. Now, this is for a disease which primarily is fatal for individuals over 75. Just been appointed to the task force. Now, he was asked about this particular article in the MIT Technology Review just this last year on August 21st of 2019. And instead of backing away from his thoughts or comments, he really doubled down on them. He was asked, quote, "What's wrong with simply enjoying an extended life?" And his response was, "These people who live a vigorous life to 70, 80, 90 years of age, when I look at what those people do, almost all of it is what I classify as play. It's not meaningful work. They're riding motorcycles, they're hiking, which all can have value, don't get me wrong. But if it's the main thing in your life, that's probably not a meaningful life." End quote. Friends, I hear this argument so often from the pro-abortion side when it comes to the quality of one's life. And quite frankly, I am sick and tired of politicians or doctors or others telling the rest of us what makes for a meaningful life, whether that's at the beginning of someone's life or at the end of their life. This is such an anti-Christian way to look at the human person, because our value doesn't come from what we do. Our value comes from who we are, made in the image and likeness of God. I mean, literally, this sounds like it's coming from communist Russia, that our value is just based upon the work that we do. And if you're not very valuable, if you're not working, you're not contributing to society in that way, then your life isn't valuable. That's just ridiculous. Our life finds its value from the very fact that we're made in God's image and likeness, and it's based upon who we are, not what we do. But again, this individual just named to the COVID-19 task force for Vice President Biden. But that's not all. Interestingly enough, it appears, according to some reports, that the Biden-Harris administration may select California Attorney General Xavier Becerra as the new United States Attorney General. Now, as Attorney General of California, Mr. Becerra did this. He tried to force pro-life pregnancy resource centers to advertise abortion and contraception. Let me repeat that. A pro-life pregnancy resource center, which helps women find options when they're in a difficult pregnancy. And they're trying to show women all the different resources, financially, emotionally, spiritually, practically, so that they can choose life for the unborn child. He wanted to force them to advertise abortion in their clinics. These are individuals and people that want to help individuals choose life for their unborn child. It's like telling Chick-fil-A, hey, make sure you tell everybody when they come into your store that you're not McDonald's. Look, Chick-fil-A's primary mission is to provide beautiful, wonderful tasting chicken sandwiches. Okay, maybe that's a bad example, but look, the reality is pro-life pregnancy centers give those individuals coming into their clinics pro-life options. They're not there to point women to where to get an abortion, but that's exactly what the Attorney General, Mr. Becerra, wanted to point individuals to. And it's why Senator Harris has actually floated out there the idea that any state that wants to pass a pro-life law, that they're going to have to run that pro-life law past her Department of Justice. Interesting that the vice president would want states to pass it by her Department of Justice. But it makes sense when, again, Mr. Becerra, while he was Attorney General there in California, slapped 15 felony counts on pro-life journalists who exposed Planned Parenthood selling baby body parts and baby organs. Okay, you may have remembered when David DeLeon released his undercover videos, which exposed Planned Parenthood across the country. He was actually residing in California at the time. And instead of going after Planned Parenthood then for illegally selling babies' body parts, they went after the journalist who exposed their dirty practice. And this could potentially be the leader of our next Department of Justice. My friends, elections have consequences, and you're not just electing the individual to the office of the presidency, but you're electing all those individuals that they will bring with them. And bringing with him to the White House, it seems that Vice President Biden is going to bring a radical pro-abortion agenda with him. Makes sense, right? He's already embraced abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy and told us that he's going to try to remove the Hyde Amendment, which means our taxpayer dollars would fund abortions. All right, secondly, on today's show, let's talk for a moment on the COVID-19 a little bit more deeply, because again, some of the individuals that have been appointed to the COVID-19 task force includes Dr. Michael Ostrom. In a recent article with CNBC, he said that the United States needs to lock down again for at least 4 to 6 weeks to get past COVID-19. Now, look, I've had family members who've been diagnosed with COVID-19. It's real. It's a real virus. And, you know, all the conspiracy theories out there and so on and so forth, that's what they are. They're conspiracy theories. But the fact that we are considering shutting down the economy for an illness with a 99% survival rate is absolutely ludicrous. And the damage that shutting down the economy again will have is absolutely devastating. Our seniors in nursing homes are already literally dying because of loneliness. And this was outlined in plenty of articles. You can check out the NBC article in October 27th, which looked at how seniors are literally dying because they're lonely with no one to visit them in nursing homes. But according to the CDC, a survey that was taken this past June, 24.7% of 18 to 24-year-olds and 19.5% of 25 to 44-year-olds stated or started or increased substance abuse to cope with the pandemic-related stress or emotions. That same survey, taken at the end of June, found that 25.5% of 18 to 24-year-olds and 16% of 25 to 44-year-olds had seriously considered suicide in the past 30 days. And as Ohio State Representative Jenna Powell just recently pointed out in the district that she represents, in the city of Troy, they saw a 178% increase in drug overdose calls to the Troy Fire Department. And Troy alone has experienced a 267% increase in suicide calls this past year. Friends, when we shut down the economy, that has tremendous impacts on people's livelihoods, on people's emotional health, on their psychological health. We need to protect those individuals who are vulnerable, but we cannot take, again, these extreme measures, which makes everyone more dependent upon the government for their survival. That's the exact opposite direction that we need to go as a country, being more and more dependent upon the large state to take care of us. We as individuals, we need to be able to live our lives in accordance with truth, in accordance with taking the practical measures to protect ourselves. I'm not saying not to do that. But the fact that we're looking to shut down the entire economy, that's going to shut down people's livelihoods, and it's going to increase suicide. It's going to increase drug overdoses, and that's just not good for the human family. So here's the bottom line. I think we have to continue to realize that COVID-19, yes, it's real. We need to take the necessary precautions. But number two, for the love of all that is holy, do not allow the fear of death to become the fear of living. We as the church, we as Catholics and a people of faith, we know that this life simply isn't just about this life. Look, if we fear death so much, we would never hop in our cars. But the reality is, life carries in itself inherently risks every time you step outside the door. We cannot let that fear of death, that fear of illness overtake our lives, but that's exactly what it's done. I've met so many Catholics these past few months. They're just scared. They're just frightened. That's not who we are as Catholics. We're a people of joy. We're a people of hope. We're a people that goes out into the gutters, into the streets when there's the bubonic plague and others, and we reach out and we help people because we don't fear death, but we fear more a soul being lost. And it breaks my heart that across this country, dioceses have cut off the opportunity for the sacraments, those healing sacraments of grace, because we fear death so much. What do we fear more? The death of our bodies or the death of our souls? And I'm afraid our church and our country is more afraid right now of the death of our bodies. But there's one thing that's going to last into eternity, and that's our souls. Yes, there's going to be a resurrection of the body, but at the end of the day, we have to fear hell more than we have to fear anything that can happen to our mortal bodies here on earth. All right, third and finally, last point on today's show. There's simply not enough time to review everything going on in the election and the demographics as I wanted to and as I hoped to from last week's show. Otherwise, again, we would be here all day. And look, it's going to take a miracle at this point for the presidential election results to be overturned and a pro-life candidate in President Trump to be elected to the office. And if that does happen, then we have to accept that as divine intervention. But I continue to believe that whatever irregularities that have come up in the election, they need to be investigated. And look, if you're someone that you don't think that they're going to overturn the results, what is wrong with going ahead and investigating any claims of fraud? If it doesn't bring up anything, then praise God, it doesn't bring up anything. But again, if the human person is involved, then you know that there's going to be at least some individuals that are trying to, sway the election, particularly with the amount of hate there was for President Trump out there. But I'm just, to look at investigative reporting today, it's just really sad. You have individuals that make a fraud claim, and then the investigative reporter goes to the authority in charge and says, is there any fraud here? And the investigator, the person in authority says, no, there's no fraud here. And then the next day's news is no fraud here, nothing to see. I mean, where has investigative journalism really gone? It doesn't exist at the end of the day. It's gotten so bad, in fact, that the major tech networks, they're now fact-checking posts that have absolutely nothing to do with the election. So on Instagram the other day, President Trump posted something honoring our veterans, just saying something of the nature, Veterans Day, honoring those who served. Well, Instagram posted up on there, just so you know, that Vice President Biden is the assumed president-elect of our country, a little election fact-checker on there. All he was doing was thanking veterans for their service. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous, the point that we've come as a country that we need to be fact-checking something as simple as that. And look, is it just me, or is anyone else surprised that Vice President Biden got more votes than even President Obama when he ran for office? I mean, it seems to me there was a little bit difference of an enthusiasm gap between those two candidates. But look, I know that the hatred for President Trump was very strong. A lot of people didn't like him. But at the end of the day, we do have to look at the fact that both Vice President Biden and President Trump got more votes in history than any other presidential candidates. So there is really, there's no mantle here that Vice President Biden can come out and claim that he has a mantle to make strong decisions when it comes to his agenda. The country is incredibly divided. And same thing, again, if President Trump comes back and he wins the election somehow by some miracle, that he can't claim a strong mantle to go out and push forward his agenda. When you have 77 million votes going to Joe Biden and 72 million votes going for President Trump, you have an incredibly divided electorate. And maybe we as Catholics, the bigger question for us moving forward is how do we heal? Or how do we heal our American church? Look, 50% of Catholics ended up voting, early results again, voting for President Trump, and 49% voting for Vice President Biden. Why is that? Hopefully we'll be able to dive into that a little bit more in next week's show. Because I think that's an important point to look at. Why are Catholics in particular so divided when it comes to political parties? And it's going to be challenging for us. It's going to be challenging for some of you that watch this show with some of my thoughts, but come back and hear them. I'm open to fight. I'm open to dialogue because we need to have hard conversations in our church. So let me just finish with this, friends. The country in 2020, we've been through a tumultuous year. It's been a tumultuous election. But please, I implore you, continue to get on your knees and pray. Believe that God is at work, and please put everything into God's hands. When we put everything into God's hands, we will begin to see God's hands in everything. Friends, can't wait to see you next week on Catholic Citizen, where we'll look at more of the week of news through a Catholic perspective. God bless.
This show and all media on Awaken Catholic is made possible by the Awaken Nation and the Hallow app. The Awaken Nation is a community of people like you who support all things Awaken for as cheap as a cup of coffee a week and get access to exclusive content. Learn more by visiting awakencatholic.org/donate. Hallow is the only audio-guided Catholic prayer app focused on contemplative prayer and traditional Catholic meditation such as Lectio Divina, Daily Examen, and the Rosary. We here at Awaken all use Hallow every day and love it. To learn more or give it a try, visit hallow.app/awaken.